What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Duty's Daggers. And today I'm going to prove to you that the Benchmade Narrows is an absolutely awful knife, and they should all be tossed into a furnace and melted down into scrap. I hate this knife. Luckily I was able to, luckily I have a friend that was able to send me his so that I could, I could hate on it for some videos. I've already had this knife on the channel. I made a video already about how much I don't like it, but I want to do some more comparisons, especially with this Drift Large, because I recently got this, and it's a comparable knife in a lot of ways, and so I want to compare these two and a couple others. I got the TRM Neutron 2 out here. These are all very thin, very EDC pocket-friendly knives, and that's what the Narrows is trying to be. I just think these knives do it way better, and I'm going to tell you why. So let's get into it. Please subscribe to the channel. Look down there, make sure you are subscribed, and like the video while you're down there. I'll give you a chance to go do that right now, so go ahead. Do it right now. Alright, thank you. Benchmade Narrows. This is a very expensive knife. I think, what, $500-600 maybe? Somewhere around there. These two knives are way less. This one was about, I think, 300. This one was more because of the fancy scales, but just the base knife, somewhere like 200 around there. I don't know. I can't remember. Not even close to how much this costs, though, and still these are better. It's a titanium frame lock, using a version of the Axis lock. It's a little different. They apparently made some changes to accommodate this super thin profile. But it is essentially an Axis lock. It operates the same way. You got two tabs on the other side that you pull down. Because it is an Axis lock, it has almost no detent at all. One thing I really hate about it. No detent and Axis lock. I'm tired of Axis locks. It has Omega springs in here. There are different kinds of Omega springs than we usually see, but they are Omega springs. They are not coil springs, and they have been known to break fairly often, which I think is a horrible knife thing. It's a horrible thing to have in a knife, something that can break. You want your knife to be reliable. And Omega springs are not reliable. Imagine you have this knife, or any Benchmade, in your pocket, and you get into an unexpected survival situation where you need your knife, your life depends on it. You pull it out to use it, and you break an Omega spring, which renders the lock completely useless. The knife will not lock open if that happens. And I know Benchmade fanboys will say, yeah, just get a stick and you can jam it in there and that'll keep the lock open. Yeah, sure. It might work. The stick might break and you might cut your hand too, though. Then you're really screwed. You're out in the middle of nowhere with a bleeding hand. So I would rather just not carry a Benchmade. For a lot of reasons, but that's one. The chance that it's going to break. And a very good chance it's going to break. Some people go their whole lives without breaking an Omega spring. Others have broken 5, 10 Omega springs. It can happen, and it happens a lot, even if it hasn't happened to you. Chances are it will at some point. So, huge downside to the knife already. Now let's talk about the design of this knife. It's extremely thin. That is the selling point of the knife. Too thin, in my opinion. Way too thin. The Drift Large here is a thin knife, but it is thicker than the Narrows. The Neutron 2 is a very thin knife, still thicker than the Narrows. Do we need a knife that's even thinner than this knife? No, I don't think so. Especially because when it's this thin, the ergonomics suffer greatly. This is a very uncomfortable knife to grip onto. Not only the thinness, but the way the handle is shaped. We'll go more into that in a minute. It doesn't need to be this thin. You know, I understand like flexing, like, hey, we can make a knife this thin, cool. But do that as like a prototype, like in your own time. You know, nobody wants this. I mean, yeah, people buy the narrows, I get it, but the vast majority of us, we don't need a knife this thin. This is quite thin enough. This almost disappears in your pocket. It's that thin. Just to compare it to, like, I don't know, a regular knife. Here's a Spyderco Sliege Bowie. Look how much thicker that is. Here's a well, kind of an extreme example, but here's an 80-20, very thick knife. I carry this in my pocket all the time. That's because, you know, and that's why this really feels like it disappears, is because sometimes I carry something like this. What else? Let's grab a Spyderco Manix 2. Almost forgot the name. Thicker than the Drift Large there. Definitely thicker than the Neutron, and way thicker than the Narrows. This is thin enough. We don't need to go thinner than this. Even though this is a thin knife, the Ergos are still really good because of the handle shape, and it's just good. It's got a little bit of substantiality in your hand. It's not, you know, not as substantial as an 80-20, but it feels good. This does not. This does not feel good at all. Thinness, and also this handle, the way this comes down like this, is so uncomfortable. Like, you want to grip it like this, but the way this is coming down, it starts digging into your pinky right here. It is so uncomfortable. I absolutely hate this handle shape. It's horrible. It is absolutely awful. Now, because it's so thin, these are titanium scales that I can flex. Watch this. I'm flexing those scales, and that's fine. It's not going to break, probably, but I don't like it. That's why if ever I get a knife with Grivory scales, you know, plastic scales, I usually change them out if I can. I just don't like I don't like flex. I don't like that. Just looks wise, we have these large areas cut out of the handle where it looks like there was supposed to be an inlay in there and they just forgot to put them in. I think it looks horrible. Which scale do you think looks better, huh? This lizard skin texture or this atrocity? Which looks better, you think? Which looks better here? This really grippy, but not too grippy, amazing looking quiet carry texture. Or this atrocity? Which do you think looks better? I think just plain flat titanium would have been better than this. It looks incomplete and bad. These pockets are mirrored on the inside as well, and they're a little bit deeper on the inside for even more weight relief. So the titanium that is in between this point and the same point on the inside must be quite thin. I would love to put a caliper on that and see how thin that is. The blade I am pretty fine with. It's nice and thin. This is going to be a very good slicer. Let's take a blade stock measurement. 80 thousandths. Is that even thinner than TRM? I think so. Yeah, TRMs are 89 thousandths. Drift is 85 thousandths, and this is 80. So this is very thin blade stock. It'll slice well. Behind the edge, we've got 16 thousandths there, 14 there, and 14 there again. Yeah, nice and thin behind the edge. Not like insane, like 6 to 10 thousandths, but very nice and thin. So yeah, this will cut for sure. It's a pretty nice blade shape. Yeah, it'll cut well. The sharpening choil is, it's okay. You can see it's already starting to get thick, right where that edge is ending already. So I feel like with the next sharpen, you're probably going to start getting a smile. If that Plunge grind would have been tighter radius, then it would have been fine. But that'll start to smile after a little while. Nice and sharp. The blade steel, however, M390. Come on. On a knife this expensive, M390, the most boring and plain and with. The clip isn't even titanium. It's a bent steel clip. Come on. What the hell, dude? Steel's hardware, or sorry, the, is the hardware? Let's see, I can't tell. The hardware might be titanium. The pivot is definitely not titanium. But these screws seem like they're titanium. It's so overpriced, it's insane. It's so overpriced for such a bad knife. You know, if it was this much and it was like a great knife, then okay, yeah, it's still expensive, but at least it's a good knife. This is just a bad knife all around. Ergonomics are awful. Detent, awful. You know, it's smooth. You know, when you pull down the axis lock, and you got definitely a nice free swinging blade on bearings for sure. But the detent, man, ugh, awful. Even as far as crossbar locks go, this is very, very mushy. Yeah, very, very mushy. I hate it. Also, Benchmade put their website on the blade. Why in the fuck would you do that, Benchmade? Is anyone wondering, oh, I wonder what the Benchmade website is? What could it be? What could the Benchmade's website possibly be? Is it knives.com? Is it butterflylogo.com? Is it axislocks.com? Is it overprisedknives.com? No, it's probably benchmade.com, you think? Holy shit, man. Ugh, this knife just really disgusts me. I've never felt this amount of disgust for a knife before. I've almost never felt this amount of disgust for an inanimate object before, period. And in the comments, if you are a fan of the Narrows, I would love to talk to you and hear your opinion on these things. I feel like my points are pretty undisputable. Unless you have really different hands than I do, this is an uncomfortable handle. There is no detent. You can't argue that. It's too thin. Doesn't need to be that thin. Could be a little thicker and be more comfortable. These are, you know, way overpriced. Steel bent clip. Website on the blade. An M390. For that amount of money. Those are all indisputable facts. So, please, if you want a nice, thin, very slicey knife, go with a Drift Large. Or the original Drift, even. Both incredible, slicey, easy to carry, very thin knives with an amazing texture on the scales. A Neutron 2. If you don't want this one, you can get an even lighter weight one and cheaper in, you know, like Micarta or G10. Incredibly amazing EDC knife in MagnaCut. These are all in Van X, by the way, completely rust proof. Get something like this. Pass on the Narrows. Save yourself some money. Don't buy the Narrows. That's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time, folks.